Hey everyone, John from Nintendo Live here, and as of the 4th of December I am still alive, but as of the 31st of March I may not be, but I am joined by Xeon. Hey Xeon.
Hey!
And Alex.
Hello there, lovely people, I suppose.
So, fellas, the March 31st seems to be a day of dismay, because not only is Mario 3D All-Stars no longer going to be sold physically or digitally, but Mario 35 is going to be delisted from the eShop, and the online servers, I suppose, are going to be shut off. The original Wii U Mario Maker is going to have some online activity, I guess, turned off. You can no longer upload levels, for one. The Mario Game & Watch will no longer be sold, so this is a pretty sad day for Mario. Xeon, what are your initial thoughts on this?
Honestly, I don't really understand it. I guess maybe from a business point of view, maybe Nintendo is just removing some of these things just to kind of, up sales a little bit. But otherwise, it feels just kind of like a very un-Nintendo move, because they don't do this whole limited nature thing very often. It's really strange.
It's rubbish, is what it is. Sorry, I'm in a slightly foul mood at
Good,
the moment. So
bring it on.
Yeah, just this whole situation is really, really disappointing, to be honest. Again, the intent doesn't appear to be really clear. I mean, I do think maybe, Xeon, you're on the money. That's the only thing I can think of that would actually make even a remote amount of sense. But at the same time, this is Nintendo we're dealing with, so goodness only knows what it is that they're actually doing this for. But according to all this, it's all gonna shut down. But I don't necessarily think it all will, to be honest. I think certainly Super Mario Bros. 35 will probably carry on.
I hope so, because it's a really fun game, and it sucks that Mario 3D All-Stars is going to be delisted, but at least we have that game. We can still play it for as long as we want to, whereas Mario 35, if that thing gets taken down, we can't even touch that, and that's going to suck. And it's not even Mario that's solely affected. Fire Emblem Shadow Dragon is coming out, is it today or tomorrow? It's very soon.
At the time that this video goes out, it's today.
That's right, wow.
Well then, so that's also going to be delisted on March 31st, and that's so weird, because they're localizing that game for the very first time. It's not like Mario, where they're kind of just preserving games that have been out before. This is bringing a game that's never been in English and giving it to English readers. And it's like they're preserving games and then taking them away? Like they're preserving them temporarily? I don't understand the logic behind that.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. It's a really interesting decision, especially now that Nintendo has the Nintendo Online service where you can play classic NES games. It's interesting that they didn't decide to put it over there. And I mean, it does sell on the eShop for $5.99 US. So I mean, it's not really like a whole lot of money that someone has to throw at this. And considering this is the first time that it's been officially playable to a Western audience, I'm happy to throw that small amount of money at this game. But like you said, it's interesting that they're making it a limited time thing. You'd think that this would be the sort of game that Nintendo would want players to be able to play in, down the road as well, but them removing it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense.
And I often hear the cheap price being used as a way to sort of defend this. That's like me saying, Lost Winds is 1,000 WiiWare points. Like, what use is that now? you can't buy that game.
Lost Winds, wow.
That's a blast from the past. I have actually, whilst you two have been talking, I have been double-checking something, because something that did pop into my head when they first announced this, and is something that may not have necessarily come into your mind, Xeon, is the fact that,
sure.
And I'm not trying to be rude at all, it's just the fact that the financial year for us starts in April, which may well say, well, it's not the United Kingdom. But I've just checked, and it's the same in Japan for government and corporate. So it seems that the 31st of March is the end of the financial year, or at least it's damned close. So it may well be that that's part of it. I mean, if it were just the Mario stuff, I could sort of say, well, they're just trying to sort of, culminate it all together. But including Fire Emblem as well, it's just, there's no reason that would have to be the same day. But there is one common thread, and that's the financial year, or the fiscal year. I may have misused that term. I'm not an economist.
This isn't even the first time they've done this with their collections. I believe the Kirby Anniversary Collection and the original Mario All-Stars on Wii got delisted after a while. But the big difference there is they were physical only, and we're now in the digital age. And Mario All-Stars on Wii came back as a Nintendo Selects title, like way further on. But I still don't think that's really comparable to what we have now, because that game could still be bought, like used from like eBay or whatever. But they're basically taking this off the eShop, and in an age where people buy games digitally, I just can't fathom why they would do that.
To be fair, I do think that, certainly from a physical point of view, you mentioned the original Super Mario All-Stars on Wii, which, fun fact, that game was so small, you could remove it from the disc tray mid-game and it would still play, because it had already dumped everything to the RAM. Anyway, that's just fun. But when it comes to physical games ever, with any system as well, there is nearly always a pretty limited shelf life with games. They're quite unique in that sense. I mean, you can go into a shop and you can still buy, if you can find it, like a brand new DVD copy of Alien, which, you know, I don't know when the DVD came out, but I watched it relatively recently, or it's Aliens, technically, and, you know, it had, like, the old, you know, really cool DVD menu, so it was clearly a relatively early DVD, but you can just go out, you can buy that brand new. How many games can you do that with? You can't. They're a really weird medium. So in a sense, when it came to the Super Mario 3D All-Stars on the Wii, Super Mario All-Stars on the Wii, it was arguably no different. It was just Nintendo announced that there would be no more print runs from a certain date. But I mean, like Super Mario 3D All-Stars, you're still going to be able to buy it physically after this date, if there are copies that are unsold physically in shops.
That's true, and I think the interesting thing with that is, I don't remember the exact sales data or what's at the top of the charts, but I believe Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is still one of the best-selling Switch titles.
It's the best, yeah.
It is the best? Okay. You know, so like when I used to work at a game store, people would come in looking for certain games, and those would be, you know, Super Mario Odyssey, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, Breath of the Wild, you know, those staple games. And I feel that 3D All-Stars almost, it's definitely not on that level, but it's a classic title. It's a game that I think a lot of Switch owners will just want to own. And to come back to the point that John drove home before was that, it's okay for them, I think, personally, to make it physical limited release, but to just remove it from the eShop is such a strange decision, because anybody could argue that it costs money for Nintendo to keep it on their store because of upkeep, or who knows. I don't know the logistics of that, but it has to print money at some extent.
Well, actually, you talk about hosting and things like that. They keep the games hosted anyway, in case you have purchased it, removed it from your system, and you need to download it again. You've purchased a license, so you need to have access to that game for the duration of the license. It's the same way that, you know, sort of games that have been pulled off the eShop in the past for whatever reason. Well, I suppose the example that immediately springs to mind on the Wii U is the all-time classic Meme Run. I don't know whether many people would be familiar with it. Some people in the comments will be, but it was an absolutely god-awful game, really terrible, and it was pulled, I believe, on copyright grounds, because they used copyrighted material without the appropriate copyright stuff. I'm really good at this sort of legal stuff, you can tell. So Nintendo has to keep these games online. They have to be available on the eShop if you've already purchased it. It's the same on other app stores as well. So in terms of the hosting, that's not part of it. And also at the same time, why would Nintendo have, you know, all these, you know, tiny, you know, sort of like shovelware games available on the eShop, you know, and pay for their hosting, but not something like Super Mario 3D All-Stars? That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, this isn't some niche game. This sold 5.21 million copies in 12 days' time. That is more than Fire Emblem Three Houses has sold in its lifetime. That sold around 3 million units. This game is selling incredibly well for something that took very minimal, like, compared to most, like, from the ground up games, very minimal.
Hey, those eyes are a higher resolution now.
Yeah, of course. I take it back. This took all year to make. But either way, though, this is still a really, like, great selling game, and I can't fathom why they would take it off. But because it's selling so well, whenever they do Nintendo Selects, if they do Nintendo Selects, then this will probably join the lineup, much like the original Mario All-Stars did on the Wii.
That's a good point, yeah. And speaking of that whole idea, you know, Nintendo games sell so well now that until recently, MSRP on games hasn't really dropped a whole lot, I've been noticing. And I'm a huge video game deal hunter. Like, I collect tons of games. You guys probably already know all that by now. But
oh yes, we're jealous.
Don't worry, it's a blessing and a curse. But for the first time this year around Black Friday, like GameStop, for example, put Fire Emblem 3 Houses, Yoshi's Crafted World, a few different games, all on sale for like $27.99, $29.99 US. And you don't usually see first-party Switch games go on sale like that at brick-and-mortar stores. But that got me thinking, I'm curious if whenever Nintendo Selects come out someday on Switch or something, if they're going to still hold that original $19.99 MSRP, or if they're going to boost it back up to $29 or something like that. And with a title like Super Mario 3D All-Stars, with how well it sold, because how many did you say it sold, John? That number was crazy.
5.21 million units.
That is insane. So I couldn't see Nintendo re-releasing it for $19.99, but maybe $29 or something like that down the road as a select. And that's probably getting a little bit off topic, but just another thing to think about as well.
Yeah, I mean, even if it's just going up to like, I mean, I suppose I can't remember what it actually sold for over here, whether it was 20 quid or whether it was like, 15 or so. I think it was 20 quid. So $20, 20 quid. So yeah, we got the short end of the stick again. But I imagine, sort of 25, both sides of the pond. I can see that being really, really likely actually. And overall, I'd say relatively reasonable. Like, something like 3D All-Stars. You could make the argument that it's just a load of ROMs on not even a disc this time, on a little cartridge. Is it really worth that amount of money? And it's like, well, that's not really what you're paying for. You could make the argument it's just a load of lines of code. It's worth nothing. But it is an experience, and you're paying for that experience and the time that people took to develop it, even going back originally, and all the money that they spent distributing and stuff like that. I'm not saying they couldn't have done more with Super Mario 3D All-Stars, and that's a completely different topic, but I do think that, I'd say 25, and I could see that easily happening. Maybe even sort of around this time next year, around about sort of October 2021, Nintendo announces that Super Mario 3D All-Stars is being re-released as Super Mario 3D All-Stars Plus, and it comes with, like Mario Galaxy 2 or something. I mean, that would really annoy people. But, like maybe do it as a free update, a free update for other people who own it. That's probably being too generous. This is probably unlikely now. I've sort of backed myself into an unlikely corner.
Well, they did have, on Super Nintendo, we had Mario All-Stars plus Mario World. So I don't think that's entirely impossible.
That is very true. That is very true. We could get Super Mario 3D All-Stars plus Super Mario World.
I mean, I'll take it. I think this stands on a grander point, though. Do we all think this game's going to be re-released, or is this it? Once they delist it, is that it entirely? Or is this going to come as a Nintendo Selects, or as a grander package? What do we all think?
I feel like it has to come back out at some point. If not, Nintendo leaves money on the table all the time, but this just wouldn't make any sense. I feel like the whole limited nature thing was just a tactic, I think that's kind of what we all feel, but feel like it was just a tactic to sell extra copies, and, maybe Nintendo will release a beefed up version down the road, or maybe they'll release them individually on the eShop, and maybe that's the reason why it's really getting pulled, is so that way they can split them all apart, and maybe they'll sell them for a little bit more each, just to kind of reward the people that bought that original package. That's kind of my bet on it, I think. But I feel like it has to come back out at some point. Nintendo's crazy sometimes, but I don't know if they would do that.
Yeah, I don't think price was ever really the issue with this game. Like, Nintendo, they usually sell HD remasters on their own. They sell Wind Waker HD and Twilight Princess HD on their own. And while they have quality of life improvements, they would have just sold Mario Galaxy on their own if they wanted to, and they would have gotten away with it too. So I could definitely see them selling them individually. And if they do, they've got to do Mario Galaxy 2. It made no sense to exclude that game.
Yeah, I can't help but agree. It just seems absolutely bonkers that they would not consider just re-releasing them in some regard. And it's not like Nintendo has never gone back on stuff it's said before. I mean, what was it with the Switch? They said, it's not a replacement for the Wii U, and then the Wii U was basically burnt at the stake the moment the Switch was, a glint in Nintendo's eye. And, you know, they said it wasn't a replacement for the 3DS. They've been that now as well, and we haven't seen any successor at all. There's no 4DS. That would be interesting. I've often wondered what four-dimensional gaming would look like. And
You smell your games.
Smell your... That's not a dimension, Xeon. This isn't some weird cinema at a theme park.
That would be horrible for like a Wario Land or WarioWare game, being able to smell it.
Oh yeah, or if you got like a really old copy of Cooking Mama and all the smells have gone off.
Oh no.
So that's fun.
We've been talking about Mario 3D All-Stars quite a bit though, and it's not the only game that's being delisted. I think
You know what, John? You know what? You're right.
The last one to swallow is Mario 35. That's an online game, and it's a really good one. And it's kind of harder to re-release, I think. I mean, they could just put it back on the eShop, but there's no real excuse to re-release it. It's not like they're going to do like another physical print or something, because they can't. So, is that game ever going to come back?
I think they'll release it like they released Super Mario Maker on the 3DS, hobbled and worthless.
So how did... So
just ignore that.
I don't know how to respond to that. I'm so sorry.
I wasn't being serious. I don't think they're going to do that, but I just love the idea that they'd say, hey, it's Super Mario Brothers 35 Legends. You can play against, 34 bots or something.
Oh no.
How terrible would that be?
Because Tetris 99 has kind of like a single player mode now, doesn't it? Or some kind of like extra. Yeah, so do you think Nintendo might take some ideas from that? Because I personally haven't played as much Tetris 99 as you, John, but I don't know if anyone else has.
Yeah, I mean,
from the sounds of it,
it would be a shame if they just left it, as it is, and you just can't play at all. So a single-player mode would make some sense, but I think you lose a lot of that value still. The rush of winning against actual people is kind of what makes this game, and I don't think it would be as fun just with bots. It'd be something at the very least, though. But this feels like the kind of game that they can use as an evergreen to just build upon. Like what if they did Mario 3 35 or Mario 64 35? I don't know how that would work, but like Mario 64 35.
Oh, Mario 64 35.
You just broke Alex's brain.
I have no idea how that would work either, but you've seen what some people do with ridiculous strategies to just like get the chain chomp, the chain chomp gate 1 in Bob on Battlefield. Just basically like clipping through and stuff like that. If that worked, my god, that would be amazing. It won't happen.
That's the thing, it probably won't happen. But I wish they'll just keep building upon this game, because there is so much potential for this kind of setup. But honestly, I feel like Mario 3D All-Stars probably will come back. I feel like Mario 35 won't.
I suspect they may cancel the cancellation, to be honest. And I've been weirdly optimistic against Nintendo's original ideas so far, but I do think that they will just sort of say, everyone's been really loving it, and so we've decided to extend it to whatever.
Well, they did that recently with, what's it called? Is it the Bunny Hop game?
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Yeah, Jump Rope Challenge, yeah. I just checked. It's still on the eShop right now, yeah.
So hopefully that happens again. It'd be a shame if it didn't, because this is kind of a free incentive to keep using Nintendo Switch Online, much like Tetris 99 is. So there's no... you're just devaluing your own service by getting rid of this.
Yeah, it does seem like a bizarre decision, like the Wii U.
Well, speaking of the Wii U, Mario Maker Wii U, do we have any opinions on that? Because honestly, I feel like this was kind of going to happen eventually. Online games don't tend to stay online forever. Even Halo 2 in its original state was taken offline during Halo 3's reign. So this is the least surprising to me.
I am surprised it's already still up, to be honest. When the announcement came through, I was like, oh, I didn't realize it was still active. I genuinely thought they pulled it a while ago. I don't know why I thought that, but Super Mario Maker 2 is out. Nobody owns a Wii U. That's an exaggeration. Please don't crucify me in the comments. But it's been completely usurped, apart from for the very, very hardcore community who really like certain exploits and things like that, who I am aware of, like a good old Psychro. He's a nice chap. Those are, sort of a small handful of the people who would have played the original, and they're still going to move on to Super Mario Maker 2. I whilst it's always a shame to see a game like this go offline, at the same time, yeah, it's got to happen at some point. I'm not gonna miss it.
It does burn a little to lose like 1 million levels. Like that kind of sucks.
Do we know if games like Splatoon and Mario Kart 8 and just other online Wii U games are still active? Do any of you guys know?
Oh, yeah, they are. In fact, Splatoon 1 is weirdly still active. Like, people are still playing that game.
It's so strange that Nintendo would shut down the servers for Super Mario Maker, but not these other games, I suppose. I mean, maybe they're played much more than Mario Maker is, but it feels like Mario Maker would be the one game that you would want to keep alive for as long as possible. And maybe they're just trying to push those people over into buying Mario Maker 2. I'm not sure, but...
I suppose you could argue, again, I don't know whether, I don't actually know what Nintendo's setup is, because I'm not Nintendo. But the,
What?
I know. It's surprising how many people who email us don't know that. When it comes to something like Super Mario Maker, they've got to host the levels, and the levels themselves are not very big at all in terms of file size, I'm sure. They're relatively diddly because there's only a certain number of combinations. It's basically, I would imagine, similar to like an XML document. I'm probably talking complete nonsense right now, but at the same time, it's not like it's saving an image or anything with a load of detail like anything like that. It's nothing hugely complex.
Sure.
But there's still an awful lot of them, and they have to be available constantly. With Splatoon, I nearly said Splatoon 2. With Splatoon, and indeed Splatoon 2, but it's not as relevant, you just need to hook people up. You don't need to host anything in the same way, and if you do need to host anything, it's going to be minimal by comparison.
Yeah, I mean, this was just going to happen eventually, and I think we can probably all agree that the Game & Watch being, taken off sale, that's not surprising. That was always kind of a limited item.
Yeah, it's a limited edition thing. It's a shame, but yeah.
Yeah, I agree, and I think it's nice that Nintendo did give a date as well, so consumers can expect to see it at least, hopefully, on the shelf until that time, which is nice, because then it doesn't give people as much pressure over the holidays. I think that was an okay time frame to set for that.
Yeah. I think just the thing that burns most for me is Fire Emblem. Because we can still buy these 3D Mario games separately in their original forms. We can buy physical versions of 3D All-Stars from scalpers if we want to. But this one in particular, I think there might be a physical version in America, but in Europe there's nothing. So once this goes offline, we just can't play that game.
Is there a physical version in America?
There's a collector's edition at the very least.
You've just lit a fire underneath me. There is a collector's edition here. And the ridiculous thing is, if you guys remember, is that there is a cartridge inside, but it's just like an acrylic fake cartridge with a label on it that doesn't do anything.
Weird. What?
And yeah, it's just like a display piece. It comes, the package is perfect. It comes with a poster that looks like a classic Nintendo Power issue. There's, I can't remember if there's a manual in there. There might be a soundtrack. There's a couple standard collector's edition goodies, and then you get a physical cartridge with a dust cover, like you would expect a Nintendo game to come with. But yeah, it's a non-playable, non-functioning cartridge. And the thing that upsets me most is that there are companies out here like Limited Run Games, or even just, the modding community. There's people out here that are making physical functioning cartridges in the year 2020, or people have been doing it in the past as well, and Nintendo has the resources to go make something like that as well, and they put in so much effort into this collectible package for the game, and they just, I don't want to say they missed the mark, but that was a huge opportunity that no one would have ever expected Nintendo to do, but they could have done it, and they just didn't. They had everything else set up perfect for it, and finally this Fire Emblem game is going to be playable in the West, but only for a limited time, because its physical release doesn't have the game.
Does it actually come with a download code or something?
It does, yes.
Well,
thankfully,
something.
It does come with a download code, but like John said, it's after the date. It's only people that have purchased the game will be able to play it, and then everybody else will just have to go look to YouTube videos online, or hope their friend has it, or I don't know, find other ways to go play it. And that's just, I don't know, it doesn't make any sense once again.
Yeah, I mean, a short run of physical game cartridges, even if they made it, I don't want to say like super limited, but even something like, as you say, like limited run games or super rare games, if they did a short run of, I don't know, 5,000 Nintendo has the capabilities and they more than have the money to be able to do something like that. And they could put it together in this exclusive, physical anniversary edition, 30th anniversary edition bundle, charge an absolute premium for it. People would still buy it up. Absolutely bananas.
It is bananas, Alex. I guess to wrap up, let's just give our final thoughts out there. I hope they don't do this anymore. It feels just so scummy. I don't care if the game is £1. I don't want it to be delisted at some point. It sucks that people just can't purchase it after a certain point. It doesn't make any sense either, especially when games like these are still selling incredibly well. And especially don't do it with online games. That just, it burns so much, because I really love Mario 35. And the idea that I might not be able to play it ever again in 2021?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's just... I think it's overall just a relatively poor business practice. I think it's... Either they are doing it and they are going to stick to their guns and remove it, which makes no sense to me. It does create sort of like artificial supply and demand, but at the same time they could be making more money if they released more copies of it. But at the same time, I think it's also poor if they turn around and go, "Oh, we've quote unquote changed our minds." And I think if they do that, it's going to be fairly, apparent that there's the distinct possibility that they never intended to actually go ahead with this 31st of March thing. And that's even worse, because that would, in theory, if that were their mindset, that's deceptive. And I think that's very poor as well, and surprisingly un-Nintendo. And don't get me wrong, they're not a perfect company, but this just doesn't feel like them to me.
I completely agree with both of you guys, and the only thing that makes sense is that, Nintendo, they can't be hurting for money, right? Like, they just can't. The Switch is doing so well, but maybe this was just their way of just, pulling in some extra cash for the holidays when they don't have a title like Breath of the Wild 2 or Metroid Prime 4. I mean, they did still have some great titles, but it just kind of sort of creates an unnecessary urgency for consumers or even just players. And, I saw in the comments on one of the other videos that we made about a similar topic, and someone said, well, it's available everywhere. You can, I've walked into my local store and they have tons of copies on the shelf. Well, this time next year, that's not going to be the case. And there are plenty of families that are finally getting Switches for the first time this year. Plenty of kids out there. And there's going to be people that aren't going to get this game this holiday or before March, and they're maybe going to find out about it next year, and they're going to want to play these games. And if Nintendo really does take them off the servers, then that just means that these people have to go suffer through eBay sellers and trying to buy it pre-owned or something like that. And it's not a good move. And it's like you both said, it sets a bad precedent, and it's upsetting to see Nintendo do something like this, and I hope that they don't make this a trend, because it's just bad for everyone.
Yeah, and it's hard to say vote with your wallet too, because I want all this stuff. I don't want to miss out on this stuff, and if I do miss out, I miss out forever. And it's very likely, there's a very real possibility that next year they're going to pull this with Zelda, because it's the 35th anniversary of that franchise too.
I hate that idea so much, but yeah.
Well, now I'm mega sad.
But you're not wrong.
But do you know what's not being delisted on March 31st? That subscribe button, so go ahead and press that. And
I didn't know where you were going with that. I thought you were going to say just like Splatoon 2
you
or
madman.
Puyo Tetris or another game that you love.
Or Xeon, he's not being delisted.
No, not yet. Hopefully not for 80 years or something.
So thank you for watching, and of course for a lot more lovely Switch content, stay tuned on Nintendo Life and NintendoLife.com. Until next time, everyone. Bye.
See ya.
Bye.